Commander Day stepped out of his spaceship onto Earth's soil for the first time. The air felt different, thinner than his home planet. He looked around at the green trees and blue sky with a slight frown behind his helmet. This planet looked so ordinary, so unimpressive. Primitive, he muttered, activating his armor's scanning systems. Day had served in the stellar forces for 20 years. His chest bore medals from battles across 3 galaxies. When his superiors announced the mission to Earth, many senior officers had laughed. Earth was considered barely worth their attention, a developing planet with technology centuries behind their own. But someone needed to assess this world, and Day volunteered. It would be simple. Scan the planet's defenses, evaluate its resources, and report back. His commanders would then decide if Earth was worth conquering or simply harvesting for materials. This won't even take a full rotation, Day said to himself, checking his equipment. His armor gleamed in the sunlight. The suit was a masterpiece of his civilization's technology, a living metal that could think and react, protecting him from everything from extreme temperatures to the most advanced weapons. During his career, the armor had saved his life countless times. It had withstood plasma blasts and acid storms. Nothing had ever managed to crack it. Day activated his scanner and began collecting readings of Earth's atmosphere, soil composition, and electromagnetic signals. His helmet analyzed the primitive communications bouncing through the air. Radio waves, satellite signals, wireless networks. They're still using radio transmission, he scoffed, shaking his head. They haven't even discovered basic quantum communication. The data flowing across his visor confirmed what intelligence had suggested. Earth's military capabilities were laughable compared to his people's. Their most powerful weapons would barely scratch his personal armor, let alone their warships. As Day walked through a forest, he observed Earth wildlife with mild curiosity. Small creatures scurried away from him. Birds took flight. Squirrels darted up trees. They sensed he didn't belong here. He found their fear amusing. "Computer, record biological samples," he ordered. His armor extended a small probe, collecting specimens of plants and soil. Perhaps the scientists back home might find something useful in Earth's biodiversity, even if the planet itself seemed unremarkable. By midday, Day had covered several miles, avoiding human settlements. His orders were to remain undetected if possible. The less humans knew about their observation, the better. If his people decided to return in force, surprise would be advantageous. However, his stealth mission encountered an unexpected complication. When his ship's propulsion system registered a malfunction, Day frowned at the alert blinking in his helmet display. "Status report," he commanded. "Minor fusion leak in secondary thruster," the computer responded. "Recommended action: land craft and perform maintenance cycle." Day sighed with annoyance. Even this planet's atmosphere was causing problems. Something in the composition was interfering with their technology, not enough to be dangerous, but enough to be irritating. "Identify nearest unpopulated landing zone," he ordered. The computer calculated briefly. "Coordinates set. Agricultural region with minimal human presence." With no choice but to repair his craft, Day directed the ship to descend. Through the clouds, he spotted patchwork fields of green and gold, farmland stretching to the horizon. His computer identified a clearing large enough for his vessel, away from human dwellings. As the ship lowered, its cloaking systems engaged, bending light around the hull to make it nearly invisible. The landing was smooth despite the malfunction. Day emerged and surveyed his surroundings. Fields of tall plants, corn, according to his database, would provide adequate cover while he conducted repairs. "Estimated time to completion?" he asked his ship's computer. 4 Earth hours, came the reply. Day nodded. A delay, but not serious. He would use the time to gather more data about this section of the planet. Perhaps rural infrastructure would reveal additional weaknesses in Earth's development. He had just begun his survey when something unexpected registered on his sensors, a human biosignature approaching. Small size, moving directly toward his position. Day froze. His orders were to avoid contact, but retreating to his ship now might draw more attention. His armor could render him partially invisible, but the effect wasn't perfect in broad daylight. Before he could decide, a small figure emerged from the cornstalks. A human child, female, approximately 7 Earth years old according to his scanner. She wore simple clothes with a floral pattern and carried a small stuffed animal. Day remained perfectly still. Perhaps she would not notice him, but the child looked directly at him, her eyes widening with wonder rather than fear. She clutched her toy tighter but didn't run. Instead, she took a cautious step forward. "Hello?" she called out. "Are you from space?" Day was shocked. His translator perfect rendered her simple language, but her reaction defied all predicted human behavior patterns. The intelligence reports indicated humans would panic at contact with extraterrestrial life. Yet this small one showed curiosity instead. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Day felt genuinely surprised by a species he had dismissed as weak. It was just the beginning of what would become the most important encounter of his life, though he didn't know it yet. Day stood frozen as the little girl stared at him with wide eyes. This wasn't part of the mission plan. No one was supposed to see him, especially not a human child. "Are you really from space?" she asked again, taking another step closer. She wore a yellow dress with tiny flowers on it and clutched a worn teddy bear missing one eye. Day's training told him to activate his cloaking field and retreat. Instead, he found himself studying her. According to his scanner, her name was Gia, age 7 years and 3 months by Earth calculation. "You don't have to be scared," Gia said, mistaking his silence for fear. "I'm Gia, this is Mr. Beans." She held up the teddy bear. "He's not scary either." Day finally spoke, his translator converting his words to the local language. "You should not be here, small human. Return to your dwelling." Gia's face broke into a huge smile. "You can talk, I knew it. Are you a robot or an alien?" She seemed completely unafraid, which confused Day. The adults he had observed from a distance had seemed nervous and high-strung, constantly checking their primitive communication devices. This small one showed no fear at all. "I am not authorized to interact with Earth inhabitants," Day said, turning to walk away. Gia followed him, practically skipping to keep up with his long strides. "Your suit is so cool. It looks like those video games my brother plays. Does it help you breathe our air? Is it heavy?" Day increased his pace, but Gia ran alongside him. He could easily outrun her, but something about leaving a small child alone in a field didn't align with even his military code. "My ship requires maintenance," he said finally. "I must return to it." "You have a spaceship?" Gia gasped, clutching Mr. Beans tighter. "Can I see it, please? I won't tell anyone, I promise." "Negative. Unauthorized viewing of advanced technology is prohibited." Gia's face fell. "Oh, that's okay. My dad doesn't let me touch his tools either." Day reached the edge of the cornfield and paused. His ship was just beyond, hidden by its cloaking field. He turned to the child. "You must return home now." "But I just found you, and nobody's home anyway. Mom's at work and Dad took my brother to basketball practice." She looked up at him with hopeful eyes. "Do you want to see my treehouse? I built it with Dad. Well, he built most of it, but I helped hammer some nails." Day's mission briefing had included nothing about how to handle persistent human children. His scanner showed the nearest adult humans were indeed a considerable distance away at a sports facility. "This interaction is not part of mission parameters," he said. G.A. tilted her head. "Is that space talk for no?" Despite himself, Day felt something unusual: amusement. This tiny human showed more courage facing an unknown entity than many soldiers he had commanded. "I must repair my vessel," he explained, trying a different approach. "It is important. I can help." Gia's face brightened. "I helped Dad fix our tractor once. I held the flashlight." Day considered his options. The ship repairs would take hours and the child clearly wasn't leaving. Perhaps observing a young human up close could provide valuable research data. "You may observe from a safe distance," he conceded, "but you must not touch anything." Gia bounced with excitement. "Really? Awesome, wait till I tell—" She stopped herself. I mean, I won't tell anyone. Promise. Day led her toward the invisible ship, then pressed a button on his wrist control. A section of air shimmered, revealing a sleek craft about the size of a small Earth truck. Whoa, Gia breathed, her mouth hanging open. It's just like in the movies, but better. It is a standard scout vessel, Day said, feeling oddly proud of her reaction, capable of atmospheric and deep space travel. As the ship's door slid open, G.A. clutched Mr. Beans tighter. Does it have lasers? It has defensive capabilities, Day replied cautiously. But weapons are not its primary function. G.A. followed, him to the ship's entrance but stopped respectfully at the threshold as Day had instructed. She watched with fascination as he retrieved tools and began working on an open panel beneath the ship. What's your name? She asked as he worked. I told you mine, but you didn't tell me yours. Day hesitated. Sharing personal information wasn't protocol, but the child had already seen his ship. I am called Day, he said finally. Day? Like daytime? Day, he corrected. Commander Day of the 5th Exploration Division. That's a cool name, Gia decided. Much cooler than mine. Everyone in my class is named Gia or something like it. As Day worked, Gia sat cross-legged nearby, asking countless questions about space, his home planet, and his robot suit. To his surprise, Day found himself answering many of them. Carefully edited for security, of course. Are there other kids where you come from? Gia asked, picking at the grass. We have young, Day replied, focusing on a particularly troublesome connection, though our development cycle is different from humans. Do space kids go to school too? We have education chambers, Day said. Learning is directly transmitted. He tapped his helmet to demonstrate. Gia wrinkled her nose. That sounds boring. Don't you play games or have recess? Day paused. The concept of play existed in his culture, but it was structured, purposeful, always, tied to developing skills for future roles. Nothing like the free, seemingly pointless activities he had observed Earth children engaging in. Recreation is permitted at designated intervals, he said finally. As the afternoon wore on, Day was surprised to find the repair work progressing faster than expected. Gia's constant questions were distracting but somehow not unpleasant. She had even proved useful, pointing out a small rodent that had chewed through an external sensor wire, something his diagnostics had missed. Are you hungry? Gia asked suddenly. I have cookies in my pocket. Mom says don't take food from strangers, but you're not exactly a stranger anymore, right? Before Day could respond, she pulled out a slightly squashed chocolate chip cookie, wrapped in a napkin, and held it out to him. Day looked at the offering, then at the small human holding it. In all his years exploring planets across the galaxy, no species had ever offered him food before. It was such a simple gesture, yet it somehow felt significant. My armor processes nutrients differently, he explained gently, turning back to his work. But I appreciate the offering. Gia shrugged and ate the cookie herself. Your loss. Mom makes the best cookies in the whole county. She won a blue ribbon at the fair last year. As the sun began to lower in the sky, Day realized how much time had passed. He had nearly completed the repairs and soon he would need to continue his mission. Away from this field and this unusual child who had somehow turned a routine repair stop into something else entirely. What he didn't yet know was that this encounter was about to change everything he thought he knew about Earth and its people. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the field as Day finished the final repairs on his ship. Gia had stayed with him the entire time, her endless questions slowing down only when she munched on her second cookie. The alien commander found himself answering far more than mission protocol allowed, but something about the child's simple curiosity made standard procedures seem less important. So you've been to 17 whole planets? Gia asked, eyes wide, as she sat cross-legged in the grass. Which one was the prettiest? Day tightened the last connection and closed the access panel. The gas giants of the Kova system have ring formations that reflect light in ways your scientists haven't even imagined. Better than rainbows? Different, Day replied, standing, to his full height. His armor gleamed in the golden light as its system ran a final diagnostic. Your planet has its own unique features. Gia beamed at what she took as a compliment to Earth. She jumped up and brushed cookie crumbs from her dress. Are you leaving now? My mission must continue, Dai confirmed. I have gathered sufficient data from this region. The girl's face fell. But you just got here. Can't you stay a little longer? Maybe meet my family? Dad makes really good burgers on Fridays and today is Friday. Day shook his head. That would violate multiple protocols. This interaction was already unauthorized. Will you come back someday? Gia clutched Mr. Beans tighter to her chest. The question caught Day off guard. In his long military career, no one had ever asked if he personally would return. Planets were conquered, resources were harvested, and missions were completed. Individual. Connections were irrelevant, unknown, he answered honestly. Future missions depend on my report. Gia kicked at a small stone by her foot. That sounds like grown-up talk for no. She looked up suddenly, her expression brightening. Wait here. Don't leave yet. Before Day could respond, she turned and ran through the cornfield toward her distant farmhouse. The commander checked his ship's status, completely repaired and ready for departure. The logical action was to leave immediately. The child had already seen too much, yet he found himself waiting, scanning the cornfield where Gia had disappeared. 7 minutes later, his sensors detected her returning at a run. She burst through the cornstalks, slightly out of breath and clutching something in her hand. I made this for you, she said, holding out her palm. So you won't forget Earth. In her small hand lay a bracelet made of colorful string, braided together with beads and a small object in the center. Day's scanner immediately identified the materials: cotton string, plastic beads, and a small magnetic clasp. Primitive crafting materials. It's a friendship bracelet, Gia explained. I was making it for my best friend Sumin's birthday next week, but she won't mind if I make her another one. This one can be yours. Day stared at the simple creation. This is unnecessary. I require... No, please? Gia interrupted. It's a present. You're supposed to take presents. Something in her expression made Day hesitate. His mission briefing had included information about human customs and social interactions. Gift-giving was indeed an important ritual, especially for establishing peaceful relations. Very well, he said finally. I accept your offering. Gia's face lit up with delight. Let me put it on for you. It goes on your wrist. Before Day could object, she reached for his armored forearm. For a moment, he nearly pulled away. No one touched a commander's battle armor. It was designed to respond defensively to unauthorized contact, yet he found himself extending his arm, allowing the small human to wrap her creation around the joint where his gauntlet met his arm plating. Her tiny fingers worked the magnetic clasp with surprising dexterity. There, she said proudly. Now we're friends forever, even if you're all the way in space. Day examined the bracelet now attached to his armor. It looked absurdly out of place, a childish decoration on advanced military technology. His subordinates would certainly find it amusing if they saw it. I thank you for this. He struggled to find the right word. Token. Gia beamed. You're welcome. It has special powers, too. Powers? Day asked, humoring her. Yep. Mom says friendship is the strongest power in the universe. So as long as you wear it, you'll have a friend on Earth. Day was about to respond when his armor's alert system suddenly activated. Warning indicators flashed across his helmet display. Error. Magnetic interference detected, power distribution network. Compromised shielding. Integrity. 87%, and declining. Day looked down at the bracelet in shock. The small magnetic clasp was creating an unexpected disruption in his armor's power distribution system. Somehow, the primitive magnet's specific frequency was resonating with his suit's command circuits, causing a cascade of system failures. Is something wrong? Gia asked, noticing his sudden stillness. Day tried to access his armor's emergency protocols, but the magnetic interference was spreading through crucial systems. The probability of such a small Earth magnet affecting his advanced technology was astronomically low, yet it was happening. The bracelet, he managed to say. It's affecting my systems. Gia's eyes widened. Is it hurting you? I'm sorry. Take it off. D reached for the clasp, but his gauntlet's fine motor control was already compromised by the spreading disruption. His fingers felt clumsy, unable to grasp the tiny mechanism. The lights on his armor flickered visibly now. Technologies that had withstood the heat of supernovas and the weapons of advanced civilizations were being undermined by a child's craft project. Let me help, Gia said, reaching for his arm again. Dave found himself in the unthinkable position of needing assistance from a human child. His armor, the pride of his military career, the ultimate symbol of his people's technological superiority, was failing because of a friendship bracelet. As GA worked to remove the magnetic clasp, Day experienced something he hadn't felt in decades of military service: vulnerability. Here on this supposedly primitive planet, his invincible armor had met its match in the most unexpected way possible. System after system continued to fail as warning signals flashed across his visual display. The armor's self-repair functions were offline, caught in the spreading disruption. Power levels dropped dangerously low. Almost got it, GA said, her small fingers working carefully at the clasp. Don't worry, I'll fix it. In that moment, Commander Day, veteran of countless battles across the galaxy, found himself completely at the mercy of a 7-year-old Earth girl. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had come to this planet believing its inhabitants weak and its technology primitive. Now his mission, and possibly his life, depended on the kindness and steady hands of the very species he had dismissed as unworthy of serious consideration. The most advanced armor in the known universe was being defeated not by Earth's mightiest weapons, but by a child's simple gift of friendship. Day had never experienced true vulnerability before this moment. His breathing quickened as another warning flashed across his helmet display. The armor that had protected him through plasma storms and alien battlefields was failing because of a child's bracelet. Hold still, Gia said, her small fingers working at the magnetic clasp. It stuck. The lights on Day's chest plate flickered erratically. His right arm, where the bracelet was attached, had gone completely numb as the neural interface disconnected. Without the armor's support, he could barely lift it. System failure 42%, announced the computerized voice inside his helmet. Recommend immediate power down and restart. But a restart wasn't possible while the magnetic interference continued. The bracelet's small magnet was somehow creating a resonance pattern that was spreading through his armor's network like a virus. Almost got it, Gia said, biting her lip in concentration. Sorry it's being stubborn. Dave felt a wave of dizziness as his helmet's oxygen regulation system faltered. The armor that had made him feel invincible now felt like a trap. If the life support systems failed completely... Jaya, he managed to say, his voice sounding strange even to himself. If you cannot remove it, step back. The armor may become unstable. The girl looked up at him, her eyes wide with concern but not fear. I won't leave you like this. Friends don't do that. Friends. The concept seemed foreign to Day. In his military society, there were commanders and subordinates, allies and enemies, but friendship was considered a weakness, an unnecessary attachment that could compromise duty. Another system crashed, his left leg locked in place, the servos frozen. What's happening to you? Gia asked, still working at the clasp. The magnet, Day explained, fighting to keep his voice steady. It's creating a disruption in my technology. Like when my brother's video game gets too close to the big speakers? Gia asked. Similar, but more severe. The girl's face creased with worry. I didn't mean to break your spacesuit. I just wanted to give you something nice. Despite his situation, Day felt an unexpected emotion. Not anger at the child, but something closer to sadness that his predicament was causing her distress. You couldn't have known, he said. Gia suddenly brightened. Wait, I have an idea. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small pink plastic hair clip. Maybe we can use this to pull it apart. Day watched as she slid the clip under the magnetic clasp and used it as a lever. The technique was crude but effective. With a small snap, the magnet released its hold. The bracelet fell to the ground, and immediately Day's systems began to stabilize. Emergency protocols activated, rerouting power and restoring critical functions. The warning lights dimmed, then disappeared entirely. Power restored to essential systems, the computer announced. Running diagnostics. Jai picked up the bracelet and examined it with a frown. I didn't know magnets could hurt spacesuits. She looked up at Day with genuine concern. Are you okay now? Day flexed his fingers as control returned to his arm. Systems are recovering. For the first time in his military career, his legendary armor had been compromised, not by advanced weapons or alien technology, but by a simple magnetic toy created by a human child. The realization was humbling and disturbing at the same time. I am sorry about your bracelet, Day said, watching Gia turn the small gift over in her hands. That's okay. I can make you a different one. Maybe without magnets next time. She smiled hopefully. Does that mean you'll come back? Day didn't answer immediately. His mission parameters were clear. Gather information, report back, allow his superiors to determine Earth's fate. But something had changed. The data he had collected could no longer be trusted. His understanding of Earth's capabilities had been fundamentally altered. My armor has never failed before, he said, more to himself than to Gia. Through 17 campaigns, countless battles, never. Maybe it was just a fluke, Gia suggested. Like when our TV goes weird during thunderstorms. But Day knew better. It wasn't just a fluke. The magnet had exposed a critical vulnerability in technology his people had thought perfect. If a child's trinket could disable a commander's battle, armor, what other surprises might this primitive planet hold? His superiors' assessment of Earth was deeply flawed. Their intelligence had focused on military capabilities, technological advancement, natural resources, but had completely overlooked the unpredictable creativity of humans themselves. As his armor completed its self-diagnostic, Day made a spontaneous decision that went against every protocol he had ever followed. Gia, he said, kneeling down to her level, I need to examine that bracelet. She handed it over without hesitation. You can keep it if you want. I'll make a new one for Sumin. Day carefully stored the bracelet in a containment unit on his belt. The scientists back home would need to study it, understand how such a simple device had compromised their most advanced defensive technology. Does this mean Earth is stronger than you thought? Gia asked, watching him with curious eyes. The question struck Day like a physical blow. This child had inadvertently exposed not just a weakness in his armor, but a flaw in his entire civilization's thinking. They had defined strength only in terms of weapons and technology, overlooking the power of innovation, of the unexpected. Not stronger, Day said slowly. Different, and difference can be significant. Gia nodded as if this made perfect sense. That's what my teacher says too. She says being different is a superpower. Day's helmet display showed that his ship was ready for departure. His mission should continue, more regions to survey, more data to collect. But the most valuable information he could bring back to his superiors was already in his possession, evidence that their assessment of Earth was fundamentally wrong. I must return to my people, he said, rising to his full height again. What happened here changes things. Will they be mad about the bracelet breaking your suit? Ga asked, suddenly worried. Day considered this. His commanders would certainly be alarmed to learn about the vulnerability. Some might call for immediate action against Earth before humans could discover and exploit this weakness. Others might insist on more careful study. They will be surprised, he said finally. As I am. The sun was setting now, casting long shadows across the cornfield. Gia would need to return home soon, and Day needed to depart before more humans discovered his presence. You have to go now, don't you? Gia asked, her voice small. Yes, Day replied. and you must return to your dwelling. Your family will be concerned." Gia nodded reluctantly. "Will I ever see you again?" Day looked down at the small human who had, without any weapons or technology, defeated the most advanced armor in the galaxy, who had shown him kindness when she could have shown fear, who had offered friendship to an alien soldier. "I do not know," he said honestly, "but I will remember you, G.A. of Earth." What he didn't tell her was how much their encounter would change his report, and potentially the fate of her entire planet. The knowledge he would take back to his superiors wasn't just about a vulnerability in their technology. It was about the unexpected strength found in the creativity, adaptability, and kindness of Earth's inhabitants. In his 20 years as a commander, Day had never filed a report recommending caution when dealing with a technologically inferior world. But as he watched Gia wave goodbye before disappearing into the cornstalks, he knew this report would be different. Very different indeed. Day sat alone in his ship, staring at the small friendship bracelet now sealed in a containment unit. The vessel hovered silently above Earth's atmosphere, cloaked from human detection systems. He should have already left orbit and begun the journey back to the fleet. Instead, he found himself unable to leave, his thoughts full of questions that had never troubled him before. The ship's computer interrupted his contemplation. "Commander, shall I set course for rendezvous with the fleet?" Day touched the bracelet's container lightly. "Not yet. I need to complete my report." He pulled up a holographic display and began recording his official mission assessment. 20. Years of military service had taught him exactly what his superiors expected: clear data, strategic analysis, resource evaluations, and threat assessments. Reports were meant to be factual and unemotional. Yet as he tried to describe what had happened with Gia, he found the standard format inadequate. How could he explain that the most significant finding of his mission came from an encounter with a 7-year-old girl? How could he help them understand what he himself was still struggling to process? He deleted his first attempt and started again. To the high command of the stellar forces, he began. "I must report a critical discovery regarding planet Earth that fundamentally changes our understanding of this world and its inhabitants." Day paused, considering his next words carefully. His report could determine whether Earth faced immediate invasion or was left in peace. Lives, possibly billions, of them hung on his assessment. While Earth's military technology remains primitive by our standards, I have discovered an unexpected vulnerability in our own defensive systems when exposed to certain Earth materials. He attached the scan data from his armor's failure, showing how the simple magnetic clasp had created a cascade of system failures. This incident reveals two critical facts. First, our technology has an exploitable weakness that Earth materials can trigger, even accidentally. Second, and perhaps more significant, our intelligence on Earth has been dangerously incomplete. Day rose from his seat and paced the small cockpit. Through the view screen, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the blackness of space. Somewhere, down there, Gia was probably having dinner with her family, perhaps telling them about the space person she had met, a story they would likely dismiss as imagination. He returned to his report with new resolve. "Our assessment protocols have focused exclusively on measurable technologies and resources, ignoring the less quantifiable but perhaps more important aspects of human development: their creativity, adaptability, and unpredictable approach to problem solving." He thought of Gia using her hair clip to remove the bracelet when he, with all his advanced training, had been helpless. Humans solve problems in ways our predictive models cannot anticipate. They make connections our logic does not follow. While individually they may seem primitive, collectively their diverse thinking creates solutions our uniformity cannot match. Day knew this assessment would be controversial. The High Command valued order and predictability above all else. Their entire conquest strategy was based on the belief that superior technology always prevailed. His report suggested otherwise. "I recommend immediate research into the magnetic vulnerability discovered during this mission. More importantly, I strongly advise against standard harvesting operations on Earth at this time." He hesitated before adding his final recommendation, knowing it might end his career. But the image of Gia's trusting face as she tried to help him compelled him forward. I further recommend diplomatic contact rather than conquest. Earth humans have shown capacity for kindness toward unknown entities that suggests possible alliance. Potential. Day ended the recording and sat back, exhaling slowly. Never in his military career had he filed such an unconventional report. Some commanders would call it treason, others might question his mental stability. But he knew what he had. Experienced was real. His armor, the symbol of his people's technological superiority, had failed because of a child's gift. The same child who had then helped him when she could have run away in fear. What other surprises might humans hold? What other weaknesses in his civilization might they accidentally expose? The computer spoke again. Commander, report is ready. For transmission. Shall I send it now? Day looked once more at Earth through the view screen. Somewhere on that spinning blue world was a farmhouse where a little girl named Gia might be looking up at the stars right now. Send it, he commanded, and then set course for the fleet. As the ship accelerated away from Earth, Day removed the bracelet from its containment unit. The scientists would want to study it, of course. But first, he wanted to hold it, this simple object that had changed everything. The fleet received his signal 3 days later. Day stood at attention before the Council of Commanders, his armor polished to perfection, showing no sign of its recent failure. The chamber was silent as the senior officers reviewed his report. First Commander Tay, the oldest and most respected of the council, spoke first. Commander Day, you have served with distinction for 20 years. Your reports have always been precise and reliable, which makes this, he gestured at the display showing Day's assessment, all the more disturbing. I understand, First Commander, Day replied, but I stand by my findings. You suggest we delay harvesting a resource-rich planet because of a child's toy? Another, Commander scoffed. Perhaps the Earth atmosphere affected your judgment. Day removed the bracelet from his pocket and placed it on the center table. This toy disabled my armor's primary systems in less than 2 minutes. Our entire fleet uses the same technology. The commanders stared at the colorful bracelet with its small magnetic clasp. We've tested it, Day continued. The specific frequency of this Earth magnet creates a resonance pattern that our shields cannot block. It's a design flaw we never discovered because we've never encountered this particular type of simple technology. First, Commander Tay picked up the bracelet, examining it with narrowed eyes. And you believe humans created this deliberately as a weapon? No, First Commander. That's precisely my point. It was created by a child as a gift. Its effect on our technology was completely accidental. Day took a breath before delivering his most important argument. If humans can accidentally discover a way to disable our most advanced defensive systems, imagine what they might accomplish if they were actually trying to defeat us. The chamber fell silent as the implication sank in. Finally, a younger commander spoke up. Perhaps we've been defining strength too narrowly, if their unpredictability is indeed as powerful as Commander Day suggests. First Commander Tay nodded slowly. There is wisdom in caution. Perhaps we should study these humans further before committing our forces. Day felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Earth would be spared, at least for now. Gia and millions of children like her would continue to look up at the stars without fear. Later, as Day returned to his quarters, he found a message waiting for him. He had been reassigned, not to a punishment post as he had feared, but to lead an expanded research mission to Earth. His new orders were to establish long-term observation posts and gather more information about human innovation and problem-solving. He would return to Earth after all. As he prepared for his new assignment, Day carefully placed Gia's bracelet in a small protective case that he would carry with him. It would remind him always of the lesson he had learned in that cornfield. True strength wasn't always found in the most advanced technology or the most powerful weapons. Sometimes it was found in the unexpected places, in the creativity of a child, in the willingness to help someone different from yourself in the simple act of offering friendship. And perhaps someday, if circumstances allowed, he might even find a way to thank the small human who had changed not just his understanding, of Earth, but of his own people as well. After all, as Gia had taught him, that's what friends do.